various JavaScript browser objects, understanding about the browser objects. Next, after knowing about the browser objects, now you have to know about another important is object-oriented programming in JavaScript. What are the features of object-oriented programming in JavaScript? Actually, some points already I told you. JavaScript is not OOP language. JavaScript supports some features of OOP, object-oriented programming. JavaScript is not a OOP language. It supports some features of OOPs. So it is not a complete object-oriented programming language. So the concept of OOP concepts, OOP was introduced in early 1967 by Johan Ole and Christian Nygaard. These two people introduced the concept of object-oriented programming in early 1960s and formulated means first implemented with a language called Simula 67. That is the first object-oriented programming language. The first object-oriented programming language is Simula. So the main intention of this language is code reusability. Code reusability is one of the main. Code reusability is the main concern. Code reusability concerns means how to reuse the code without rewriting the code. These two people introduced this concept, code reusability, object-oriented programming. It is in early 1967. So the first OOP language was Simula. After that, C++, Java, .NET, all these came. Right? The main concern was code reusability. But some more features are there. What happened is later in 1970s. Later in 1970s, Trygve introduced a framework called MVC. So model view controller. He introduced a framework called MVC. And formulated with a language called Smalltalk. Actually, it introduced code separation concerns. Code reusability and code separation concerns are there. Reusability and separation concerns. That is the important concept. So code reusability concerns and code separation concerns. Code reusability was introduced by Simula. Code separation was introduced by Smalltalk. Important is one of the main features of OOPs, the key features of OOPs, right? Features of object-oriented programming is code reusability, code separation, code extensibility, and code security. So loosely coupled loosely coupled. So these are the main features of object oriented programming. But JavaScript will not support all of them. JavaScript supports only few. It will not support all the OOP concepts. It will support only few. That's the reason JavaScript is called as a language that supports OOP. It is not an OOP language. OOP language means it should support everything of object-oriented programming. But JavaScript doesn't support. JavaScript doesn't support code securities. JavaScript doesn't support extensibility. That's the reason it is not a complete object-oriented programming. We will see that actually, practically we will see that. Technically, these are the features of object-oriented programming. Similarly, object-oriented programming have some drawbacks. The drawbacks are nothing but uses more memory. So very complex, slow, and will not directly interact with hardware services. So they are slow, they use more memory, they are very complex. They cannot directly interact with hardware services like printers, scanners, and all these. All hardware devices, input, output operations, and all. These problems are there with OOP languages every time. They need more memory, they are very complex, tedious. All these are the issues with object-oriented programming. So you cannot say that having object-oriented programming is great every time. So it is also having some issues, some important problems. Now, what is supported in JavaScript object-oriented programming? So in JavaScript object-oriented programming, it supports classes in JavaScript. It supports classes in JavaScript. Actually, object-oriented programming means interfaces, classes, abstract classes, and accessors, get accessor, set accessor. So many are there, but they are all not supported here. Only few. So in JavaScript, you need to understand about how do we deal with classes, how do we work with the classes, technically classes, and how to handle them. So generally, what is a class and how to use these classes? Earlier, JavaScript don't have classes. It uses object as a class. But now we have a well clean separated classes. So we need to know about them. Generally, so how do we define a class? So let's see how we can configure the classes and what is a class. Actually, technically in object-oriented, class in OOP is a program template with data and logic. Is a program template with data and logic. Data is stored in properties and logic in methods. Data is stored in properties and logic in methods. So that is actually the concept of class. Technically, many times for JavaScript based people, generally people call it as a type function. Class is also called as a type function. And classes introduced into JavaScript from ES5. That means ECMA script 2015. So before that, we don't have these classes in JavaScript. So that is what actually the point is. Technically speaking, so classes in JavaScript are defined as special functions. They are defined as special functions. They are defined as special functions, right? So how this works, how these classes are designed, what it actually contains. So let's see one simple option here. Actually, classes are defined in two ways. Class declaration, another one class expression. How a class works actually. So class contains data and logic. So classes are defined in two ways. One is class declaration. Another one is class expression. Class declaration and class expression. These are the two important things. What is declaration and what is expression? How we define that? So declaration and expression is nothing but generally class declaration. It defines a class with a name. It defines a class with a name. It comprises of members which are accessed by using the class name, class or its instance. So generally it defines class with a name, and it comprises of members which are accessed by using the class or its instance. What does that means is actually class and class name. That is generally class. Class expression is different. Generally, what is class declaration and what is class expression? So that means expression defines a class without name. It defines a class without name. Right. That is what technically the class without name. Here, the important point is without name, how you define a class. That means it is assigned to a reference memory and accessed by using reference memory. So that is class expression actually. That means I can declare like this also, where suppose my class, new class is equal to class, and you can write like this. This is the class reference actually. This is the reference. So class reference. This is called class expression. So you should know that classes are declared with two things. One is class reference, class expression, and second one is class declaration. Class declaration is this. Class expression is this. That is the two ways how we define, right? So what is important you need to understand? Let's see. So first I will open this. Means how do we work with that? I will show you now. So let's put here another folder. OOP, object oriented programming. Okay. In that I am adding a new file. Adding a new file into that. So here what we are doing is we are configuring a name, suppose demo.html. Okay, just a simple file. Let's write a script. In the script, we have class and class name, that is product, that is the class name. So in that it can have members it can be there. We have another var category category is equal to class, and we can define in this way, and we can define the members inside it. We can configure the members inside it, right? So when we are defining this, so generally the class reference and the class here. What is the two techniques actually? This is the basic syntax. That is the basic syntax, how we configure the classes. Now the point here is when we are defining in this way, generally what is difference between them and when we need this? That is the basic thing, right? So here class declaration, the main purpose of the class declaration is you are configuring a class with some members at the compile time. That is the intention of the class. And you can access and use the members. The concept of this is, this class is loaded into memory. This class is loaded into memory automatically when the page is loaded. But this is loaded only when it is needed. That means you are just declaring a variable. This class is loaded into memory only when it is called. But this is loaded into memory at the time of loading your page and it is ready. So sometimes we need some functionality which should start immediately after the page load. Sometimes we don't want until we call them. So if you create all the classes and load all the classes and you are using only few, then obviously issues will come. That means time will increase. To avoid that, generally what we need to do is, many times we need the classes to be loaded only when they are needed. Then we can create a class expression. So technically class expressions, class declaration. So class declaration loads class into memory automatically on page load. Class expression loads class into memory only when requested. That is the basic important difference. So how we can configure them and when to use them. That's a general thing. Whenever you are learning that point, first you need to learn about that point. That should not be a question at all. Because you are knowing about two methods, that means obviously you should know the difference between those two methods. Without telling the difference, nobody can explain these 2 points now, right? So if you wait, you will get answer for every question, right? The point is when to use class declaration and when to use class expression, that you know now. So how they are used, how they are configured and defined, that is important, right? And when you are working with classes, you need to know about how these members are defined inside a class, how we have to configure the members in a class, define the members in a class, what type of members will be in a class. That is the first thing you should know. That means we need to know about class members. We need to know about class members. Generally, what are the basic members defined in a class? Class members. First, important, you should know about, so the key options you should know about is class have so many things. Class have so many things. So, like, what are the options? I will tell you. Generally, a class comprises of various members. Technically, a class comprises of various members. So, what are various members? Right? Let's see. What is variables, Sachin? You suddenly wake up with variables concept. You are telling that class contains variables, huh? If you are doing so, please don't tell anything. Let me tell what that point is. Okay. Right. So technically, class comprises of various members. What are the various members inside a class? Usually, class contains various members, like it have a constructor. Class will have properties. Class will have methods. So class will have usually get accessors. So class usually comprises of constructor, properties, methods, accessors. These are the members of a class. In JavaScript, how we define the members? How do we configure the members? So it have a constructor, it have properties, it have methods, it have accessors. We will see about them. We will see how to use them and how do we work with them. Right. So technically, what are these members and how do we deal with these members? Generally, so when we are working with class, first properties comprises of data, and methods define logic. So properties comprises of data and methods define the logic. Technically, that is properties and methods. So already when we discussed about object, I told you object comprises of both properties and methods. So usually how we define? So define the properties and methods. Product, the product class contains properties. Here important is in other programming languages. So when we define properties, properties have an access modifier like public, private and all. JavaScript cannot have that. That is the reason code security issues are there. But here we have to just define property name and what value you want, some value. That's it. That's how we define the property in a class. How do we define the methods in a class? So that is property, price, some other value. Because you are using JavaScript, and in the JavaScript, we have to define the properties. And technically, what is difference between property and variable? This question is regularly asked in interviews. So property, that is name equal to Samsung. Okay. Variable. So where name is equal to Samsung TV. What is difference between property and variable? This is the regular question asked. Generally, when we declare outside the class, we can have a variable. And inside the class, it is property. So first point, a class is suppose I defined some in the class where x is equal to 10. X equal to 10. So first point, this is not valid. So if anybody says class contains variables, that is silly joke, right? That means class will not contain variables. That is the blunder term. Anybody talks about that, right? So first, that is the point you should know. So what is difference actually between variable and property? The difference between variable and property is property can have an authorized access. Property can be defined with an authorized access. Authorized access means according to the state, property can allow to read, can restrict to read, can allow to set a value, can restrict to set a value. Variables cannot do that. Variables cannot do that. That means variables, their state cannot be changed. Variables state cannot be changed. Technically, variables state cannot be changed actually. That is important about variables. So usually, actually, the point is, I told you when we discussed about the data types, mutable and immutable. Am I right? Remember the point of mutable and immutable. What is mutable? What are mutable types? What are immutable types? Can you tell me that? What are mutable types? What are immutable types? Can you tell me about that? Mutable and immutable types. Yeah. So already we discussed about that while discussing about the I am asking what is mutable, immutable. I am not asking which are mutable, which are immutable, right? Actually, as we already discussed, mutable means whose values may change. That means according to the state, they can be changed. Am I right? They can change the behavior. Right. Right. Immutable means they cannot change. Actually, variables are immutable. Variables are immutable. That means they cannot change their state. Always they are defined with a certain functionality, certain memory allocated and stored. Properties are mutable. That means they can change the state. That means at one situation, suppose if I declare const, if I initialize const must be initialized with a value. Can you redefine its functionality? Can you redefine the functionality of const? Can you redefine the functionality of const? No, you cannot redefine the functionality of const. But later, as per the situation, I need to redefine. Then it should be changed from const to var so that I can redefine a functionality. Am I right? That means I want one memory reference which can change its behavior according to the state. Then it is called as property. Property can change the behavior according to its state. But variables cannot change. Variables cannot change the state. So according to the state, a property can change. At one situation, it will allow. At another situation, it will not allow. At one situation, it is enabled. Another situation, it will be disabled. So we saw that when we worked with HTML properties. HTML properties I showed you, we can disable, enable dynamically. That means the point is the property and variables, the main difference between the property and variable. So property is mutable, mutable. That means can change according to state, And variable is immutable, cannot change according to state. That means property can have authorized access, and variable cannot have authorized access. Authorized access means you are the right person, then it will allow. You are not the right person, then it will block. That means everyone cannot read the data. Only the people who are matching with the credentials, that means user ID, password, for them it will allow. If not, then it will not allow. Like that, you can handle the properties according to the situation. But variables cannot be done like that. So class cannot contain variables. Class contains only properties. I hope everyone clear about that point. What is difference between a variable and a property? That is a regular question in interviews actually. That's the reason you should know about that. Right. Now, next important point is generally. So here when you are dealing with the properties and methods, properties later I will show you some more options also. How we give an authorized access to the property, right? So we need actually accessors for that. Get accessor, set accessor. Based on the accessors, we configure the values, right? Technically, how we define, suppose see, later I will tell you about access. This is name and price. So we can later use get some name, and it can return some functionality, means it can return that name. That means it can return that name, this dot name. So that is an accessor actually. We have set accessor. Set, so we define some name, and it should get this dot name. This dot name is equal to name. Like this, we need to configure. And based on the condition, we have to define. That means here we are configuring some more restrictions also. I will tell you about those restrictions later, how we can configure. That means this property is having more control. How to get, how to set, who can get, this all we can manage. That I will tell you later. Just to showing that properties can have more functionality here than a variable. So those we are going to learn later. First we will understand only what is property. Okay. And a class can contain methods. Generally, how we define the methods. So methods are defined in a simple, see, I am writing some function f1, that is function f1. Generally, if methods functions, here I am writing function f1. You can see this function is not allowed. It is not allowed. That means this is how generally we write methods. We should not write like that. Generally, methods should have a method name. Suppose we say quantity is 2. Method should have method name total, and a parenthesis, and it can return the value. So when you define methods, so methods in a class can be directly defined with the method signature. So that means just you have to define method name, and if required, the method can have parameters also. About methods, we are going to discuss detailedly now. We will see about that. But initially, that is method, it should return some value. Okay. Now, important is methods are configured like this. Another point is the members of a class, the members of a class are accessible. The members of a class are accessible within the class by using this keyword, and outside the class by using an instance of class. That is the basic point. So members of a class are accessible within the class by using this keyword, and outside the class by using an instance of the class. So that is important here. Now the point is This total should return quantity into price. Just like object, this dot quantity into this dot price. That is one. Another method, print. Print is a method which should print all details. Document dot write, it should print all details. Name is equal to dollar this dot name, and in the next line br, and we have price is equal to dollar this dot price, and in the next line we have quantity equal to dollar this dot quantity, and in the next line we have to define total is equal to dollar, and this dot total method will return the total. That's how we need to configure. That is how we need to define the methods. Now how we can access this? So first we have to load this class into memory. To load the class into memory, we use new class name. Class name is product. We are loading the class into memory. That means this product class is loaded into memory. That means these members also loaded into memory. Then how to access that memory? That means this memory should have a reference name. So where TV is equal to new product. That means here this class is loaded into memory and its members are loaded into that memory. We can access them by using this TV now. Many times when you learned OOP languages in different areas, you have seen people writing the class name with parentheses like this. Actually, that is not required. When it is required, I will tell you. This is enough. New class. That means it will load that class. That's it. Very simple. And its members are loaded into memory. Now through TV, I can access the print method, which will print all the details. Similarly, I can create another product. Suppose I am printing here. So BR, line break. Okay. Now I can create another product here. So where then some shoe is equal to new product. And a shoe, I can modify the details. Name is equal to Nike Casuals, like this. And shoe price is equal to some price. And shoe dot quantity is equal to 2. And shoe dot print, we are printing that method here. We are printing the details. Now when I run this, you can see it should able to print the details of both the products here. Here it is printing only one option it is printing here. So the price is not printed. This is price, right? Yeah. So it is printing both the details. We have the name and we have the price. So both the details are printed, right? Now that is the basic thing, generally how we can access and use. The same approach I told you with an object also. But object has a lot of issues. So classes advantage, you can extend the class. You can extend the classes. You can implement the classes. Classes have more functionality than general object. So that's the reason we prefer using these classes here, configuring and working with the classes here. Here, I just showed you the members. of this class. I just showed you the members of this class, only two members. One is property and methods. I am just explaining currently about only property and method. This is an example for understanding what is property and what is method. That is what I said. Were you not there in the class? I just said that property cannot have any keywords like private, protected. Haven't you listened to that? Then again the same question you are asking. Then again, what is the question you are asking then? I already said that public, private, protected access modifiers cannot be there. Oh, you are saying that I haven't said about protected and private words, huh? I said only public word. That's the reason only public is not allowed, others are allowed. You are thinking like that, right? I said that access specifiers like public, private, all these are not allowed, right? So all are not allowed. Access specifiers are not allowed. And that is the reason I said that it doesn't have code level securities. Yeah? Right. This is the point that we already discussed. Right. So we have a name, we have price, we have quantity, total, and print. These are all the methods. So JavaScript class have this restrictions. Now important, you have seen a property, you have seen a method, generally 2 points we learned. Then what is a constructor? Technically, what is a constructor? And what is the purpose of the constructor? That is important things we need to know. Generally, constructor, it is a special type of method that executes automatically when the memory is allocated for class. That's simple. Generally, when we ask what is the purpose of constructor, then immediately many people will say constructor is used for initializing the values. That is not the right answer. For constructor is initializing the values. Actually, constructor is used for configuring a functionality that should automatically happen for every class without manually calling it. Generally, when you write a method, you have to call the method. For example, I will show you. Suppose here we are looking at another one. We have a class database. In this database class, we have a insert method, document.write. So record inserted. This message should come. Okay. That is the message, record inserted. Now, important, before inserting the record, first we have to connect with the database. Every time connection is mandatory. You have to first call the connection. After calling the connection, you have to call insert or update or delete or anything. That means for calling the connection, I am creating another method, connect. This connect method is called here. That means connection established. this message I given connection established, or I will simply say connected successfully. Okay, after that insert. But important is while creating an object, let oracle is equal to new database, and oracle dot insert, I am calling insert method. This insert method should say record inserted. Without connecting, how you can insert? So initially a message is okay, but in real world, without this function executed, you are trying to execute this function, then obviously it cannot insert without connecting. Then it throws error when you are working with databases or something like that. So the point is, now connection is mandatory to happen for this class. Then only it can handle other operations. But why it is not called, why it is not working? Because it is an ordinary method. Ordinary method means you have to call that method here. Without calling the method, it will not work. Any method should to be called. But I will now change it to a constructor method, constructor. In JavaScript, constructor methods are created by using constructor keyword, and they don't have a name. The class name will be used for that constructor. You don't need to give any name, and the keyword constructor is mandatory. So constructor is a special type of method which executes this functionality automatically for every class. That for the class, whenever you use the class, this method will execute automatically. Now I will refresh. I'm not calling. So here you can see that I refresh. It is saying connected and record inserted. After connected successfully, I will put BR. So just for understanding sake, then it is showing this. That means it is connected and record inserted. So that means some actions we want to initialize. Remember, some actions we want to initialize at the time of loading the class into memory. Such actions are defined inside constructor, not initializing values. Right? Generally, when we ask this question, why constructor is used, immediately people say initializing values. That means you have restricted the constructor only to initialize values. That's wrong. Constructor can do a lot of things. And one is, it is a special type of method at a basic level. It is a special type of method that can execute automatically. Now the question is, when it is working, how it is working? We are not calling, but how it is working. Actually, you can see that when we loaded the class into memory, new database, you can see here database, the constructor is also called. That is constructor database. Class name is used for that constructor. That means you are defining the constructor. The constructor is automatically called for every class. Then obviously it will execute. It will execute. So it is a special type of method. It is a special type of method that executes automatically when the memory is allocated for class. So actually it is an anonymous method. Anonymous method, that is method without name. Method without name is called anonymous method. How such methods will work, I will show you. It is an anonymous method. So example, so this is example. Anonymous method means, I will show you the point, you can see. Suppose I am writing here a function. I am writing here function and parenthesis document dot write. So I will simply put hello JavaScript like this. Now this function is not having a name, then it is called anonymous. Now how do we call this function if it is not having a name? Then we have to enclose this function in the parenthesis. Currently it is not working because the definition is wrong, function definition is wrong. In the console you can see it says that function statement requires a function name, but our intention is I will keep this in a parenthesis, then it is anonymous function. Now there are no errors because anonymous function cannot have a name, means it doesn't require a name. How do we call the function? By using empty parenthesis. This is how we call anonymous function. And important, this empty parenthesis must be immediately after the function finished. You cannot write in another line. Immediately after the function finished, you define it, decide it. Then you can see, then that function will be executed automatically. This is anonymous technique actually. Due to this reason, what generally people do is here they will write an empty parenthesis. Actually, this parenthesis is calling the constructor. But actually constructor is called automatically. Into the constructor to pass parameters, you need this brace. That means you are defining the constructor here. So that into that we can pass some parameters that you will see later. As of now, this is not required. That is required when constructor is expecting parameters. We call this as anonymous. Anonymous. Later in functions concept also I will tell you. This is called anonymous. Anonymous. Anonymous function. Anonymous function, the function without a name. Then how we configure and call it. That's how generally constructors are also designed. So they are defined by using the keyword constructor. That means constructor is defined by using the keyword constructor. And so it is anonymous, means without a name, right? So this is the basic example. Some more points are there about the constructor to understand, means how we can configure and work with that we will see tomorrow, right? Mostly tomorrow we can finish understanding about the class and its concept. Then some more features of hoops we have to learn, that we will discuss tomorrow. And mostly tomorrow, day after tomorrow onwards, we are going to start a lab session online. Online lab session means you can log in at the time. Our mentor will give you an exercise. You need to design that exercise live in your PCs. He will be watching your screens. If you have any doubt, he will immediately solve the doubt for you and rectify the problem. By the end of the session, you should be able to finish one design. Like that, every day, I will give some exercises in that lab sessions. Our mentor will help you to clarify your doubts and solve those problems and design those screens so that you will get perfection on UI. And yesterday, I posted that ID for Classroom, Google Classroom, in the Google Classroom. And whoever registered for that, now tomorrow I will let you know the timings, and you can log in and you can start practice. I will allocate the timings, based on that you can attend. Exercises I will give there. Our mentor will help you live in solving your problem. If you have any doubt, you can ping the mentor. He will access your machine and he will see what the problem you are facing. Okay, right. Tomorrow we'll continue with this.